One. Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of JDUB and Friends podcast. With me this week is DeltaViolet, also known as PitMarthRoy from YouTube. That was kind of his first tag that I knew him as. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I'm glad the temperature outside is getting a bit lower and is starting to get hot. And this is being recorded in June for those who do not know, and so it gets to be about 100, here. So it's
Uh,
nice that it's cooling down.
yeah, it was in the 90s today here, so it's
Yeah,
not very, it's not even like the nice 90s, like where you go to like Arizona or something like that, where it's kind of a dry heat and oh, this is humidity and everything where I'm at. So,
yeah, and be like that.
yeah. So it's second podcast I've done in the last 2 weeks, which is I know a record because a lot of my podcasts lately haven't been, too right on time. Sorry, everybody. Had a lot of new life stuff happen, which, I'll probably put out there eventually, but not right now. But as people know, I start with, well, I was starting with questions, but now I have news that I've added to the list thanks to Bill Fajito, who I watch a lot of his podcasts, which he's actually announced he's coming back with a podcast. So that's some new news. My other news that I found out this week is there's a Yakuza Like a Dragon TV series coming along. I guess
Ooh.
with the way how well Last of Us did and Fallout have done, that they're gonna try and go a Yakuza route. Have you seen any of the Fallout show or Last of Us show?
Surprisingly, no on Fallout. I've tried playing Fallout the game before, and oddly enough, it just did not hook me. It gave multiple games a shot, and it didn't hook me, so there wasn't much reason to watch the TV show. The Last of Us, yes, I did play the first game and liked it quite a bit. That's one of the future projects potentially that we'll be doing on the channel with Icarus Plays since I've played it before. Give her a shot to play it. So yeah, I have watched the TV show. Did like it as a whole. Second game I've seen. Um, not as big of a fan as the second game for many reasons, but yeah, first one's good, very good game.
That makes total sense. So there wasn't very much video game news like last week. It was like, oh, we're announcing all these PlayStation games on PlayStation. I forget what it's called. Yeah, whatever. Um, but so we'll get to some questions I came up with for you.
Yeah,
Um, Now I think you're probably a little bit younger than me, just a tad bit.
yeah, yeah.
I'm in my
29.
30s. Yeah, so we're in the same general range, but so I think a lot of
Yeah.
these questions you'll probably be having fun with. But when we were growing up, because let's see, I was born in 90, so you were born in 95 then.
Yep.
Uh, we were growing up, there were some places called Blockbuster, Hollywood Video,
Yeah.
Family Video came along a little bit later. But what was like the game that you rented multiple times as a child that could be your favorite game you rented and you're like, man, I just want to play this, keep playing this.
Ooh, that's tough. I'll give an honorable mention to Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, which I rented once, and it's one of three Zelda games that I've not beaten actually, and that includes the CDs. So Minish Cap is one. Tears of the Kingdom I couldn't finish because I honestly, hot take, I didn't really care for it that much. And then the third one is Spirit Tracks that I got about 70% of the way through, and then I think another game got released that I ended up switching out in favor of that one. But the game I rented the most was probably it likely would have been something on the Wii because I got into gaming decently at a late age. It would have been about the end of the life era for GameCube, so it probably would have been something on Wii. So I'm gonna say it was probably either Mario Party 8, which is the first video that I ever did. I wouldn't really call it a Let's Play, but it's one of the first I ever did. If it's not Mario Party 8, it is probably Smash Brothers Brawl. It's probably
Mm.
Brawl.
Brawl. I am actually not played enough of Brawl right now. I played Melee and then I skipped to Ultimate, so Brawl I kind of missed right in between.
That's fair. It has been quite a bit since I played Ultimate. The last time I played it was, I can actually remember the exact day. It was September 26th, 2019. So it's
Oh
been
wow,
almost 5 years.
it's a long time.
Yeah.
Um, Now you've had, like I announced at the beginning, a couple names. How did you come up
hmm
with the names Pit Marthroy and Delta Violet?
So using PitMarthRoy eventually, before I had started doing any sort of videos or whatnot, that was just a username that I had for YouTube. That was just a way for me to be able to comment on videos. Usually watching LPers that started like a year or two earlier than I did.
Hmm.
So that was my way of being like, hey, I really like this video, like the segment, whatever the case may be. So bearing in mind that I believe it would have been not too long before, fittingly enough, Brawl would have gotten released.
Hmm.
Um, I basically comprised it of three names because I knew a lot of people either did like first and last name for their actual, their actual name, or they would do, one and two. So Proton, John, Nintendo, Capri Sun, Voltage, Megamer. So
Hmm.
kind of a mix of things. So I compounded it of three things, which was the character that I was most excited to see that was a new character, which was Pit. The character that I was most excited to have back, which was Marth, because I main Marth, and the character that at the time I wanted back that I knew wasn't going to be in the game, which was Roy. So that's how I ended up with the compound name there. Uh, it doesn't roll off the tongue too well, but I mean, I was like, oh gosh, this was probably about 15 years ago. So like, I would have been
Hmm.
at start of high school, beginning of middle school. I didn't think things like that through. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Coming up with DeltaViolet was a lot easier because that's the pen name that I use for a lot of my writing stuff, and that
Oh,
one is
okay.
rolls off the tongue a lot easier as one would expect. But that's just a mix of two of my characters, so just put them together, and there you go, nice
That
and
was
simple.
that's easy enough. Uh,
Yeah,
Now, obviously, I mean, I played a lot of games, a lot of them that I think are coming out that need either are coming out that were remade from another one in the past, or
yeah.
need a remake. Is there a game that you believe that needs a remake?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not any games that I would like a sequel to. Not at all.
No.
I don't
Nope.
have other
Not.
ones that are sitting down here. Not at all. If I would say one, I'll say in particular, outside of the two that I just showed, for those that are just listening to the audio, Mario Superstar Baseball and Pokemon XD. The game that I would like a remake of the most, and I think I talked about this on one of Tim's streams. I would kill for whenever they make the next Switch. I need to have Four Swords Adventures.
Mm,
It would be so much easier to play without all the physical equipment that you need anymore.
yeah.
And that would actually give people a chance to play it because I remember all the time both watching the few Let's Plays of Four Swords that were completed and how much fun people had playing them, and two, seeing so many Zelda ranking videos where that was at the bottom, not because it was a bad game, because either A, it took too much equipment to be able to play it, which is completely valid, or B, people are like, I'm putting this at the bottom because I haven't played this game, so I can't rank it fairly. I would love for that game to actually get like a shot with a lot of people that have seen it before and be like, oh, this is what like a multiplayer Zelda experience would be like. So that would be the big one I would want.
Yeah. They.
More of a pipe dream would be a sequel to Kirby Air Ride, but that's probably never going to happen.
It's, yeah. They could definitely.
Kill for Kirby Air Ride too.
They could definitely do a Switch remake of it because I mean it would get rid of the option for needing a the Game Boy Advance completely because I mean basically they could have it where even if you're in I mean I guess you have to be you would not be in you'd be in dock mode with the
Yeah, you have one person in dock mode, and the other controllers would be the
yeah.
out of dock mode, basically. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
totally do it.
Cool.
If I'm thinking for, I'm trying to think. There was one other one I had on my mind, and I've lost it. I mean, there's a ton of GameCube ones, and thankfully we're finally getting to see some GameCube representation with seeing like the Pikmin's coming back, the Mario Thousand Year Door. So
Hmm.
we're getting to see a lot of those. I'm trying to think if there's any other hidden gems out there, any in the pile that I pulled that I would love to see a particular remake for that I think would have a potential. Uh, as much as it would kill the resale value of the game, I'd love to see Fire Emblem 9, otherwise known as Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. I'd love to
Hmm.
see a remake of that. I think it is a very good introductory game for classic Fire Emblem, and its only real flaw, I would say, is just graphically it's not aged that well.
Hmm.
Radiant Dawn is aged a lot better, I think. But that said, I would consider it one of the easiest games to get into. I know a lot of people growing up that got into Fire Emblem a teensy bit late compared to me, Their first game was Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, which is a remake of Fire Emblem One, and it is
Yep.
brutally hard. It is like for a beginner one, if you don't know what you're doing, even on normal, you are going to get stomped in that game. So I would love to be able to see one that you could still see classic Fire Emblem, but it's also doesn't have that disadvantage of a lot of people thinking, "Oh, this is early Fire Emblem; it's going to be really hard." Even though it's considered a classic, it's got a lot of those little pieces of it, the ability to rescue units and things like that that
Mhm.
you see more in the newer Fire Emblems. When you think of old Fire Emblem, like rescuing was not a thing,
No.
shoving units was not a thing, like all of these things that just did not exist back then. So I feel like it would be a good blend. I'd love to see that one get remade with nice, shiny, polished graphic for sure.
Yeah, I actually bought the first Fire Emblem on the Switch, the you know,
Yeah, Blade
the
of Light.
re-release. Yep. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we're gonna try it out. Yeah, now personally, just because I asked him this question because the game I wanted has been out since like 1999 on PlayStation
Hmm.
1. It came out around the same time that Final Fantasy 9 was coming, well, a little
Yeah.
bit before 9, after 8, so it was like right in that weird little section. But Legend Dragoon, one of the greatest
Yeah.
RPGs of all time, and they just
Yeah.
will not remake it. They just port it to the PS5 now. So hopefully, with the amount of people that either A, download it, or B,
Yeah.
buy it, it'll get a remaster or remake. I don't care, just something. It's such a great game, and they could do so much with it. They
Yeah.
could they could redo it in the same thing as Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy 7 anyway. Have each character kind of get their own story, but who
Yeah, sure.
knows? Um,
And I'll always hold out hope for Mother 3, of
yeah,
course. I'd love Mother 3 to get a remade. The fan translation is very good. I've played it, I've beaten it. It is very good. I recommend it. But I would like it to be on something newer than a GBA.
yeah, yeah. They still have to bring it stateside before they can remake it.
Yeah. That probably won't happen, but I
Mm,
can always
no,
hope.
yeah. So we were talking about renting games earlier.
Sure.
What
Yeah.
what was the worst game or that you either rented or bought, and you're like, man, this was terrible. I should have never played this one.
Ooh. Uh, if we are counting ones that I bought going in that I knew would be terrible, like knowing full well, like I'm buying this to complete a collection or because I know
Mhm.
it's bad, Paper Mario Sticker Star for obvious
Mm,
reasons, and Superman 64 again for obvious reasons. But I knew going in that those were not good games.
right.
I wanted to play them Superman more for the laugh. Sticker Star of like
Oops.
I got it for probably a third of the price it was when it came out, and was like, okay, I got to see exactly how bad this is.
Hmm.
If I'm going with one that I bought hoping that it was going to be at least a pretty good game, and then was sorely disappointed. Um, Again, this will probably be a hot take. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Did not
Oh.
like that one. Dark Moon, and then Kid Icarus Uprising for one specific reason. Because if you think of how that game controls, I'm left hand dominant. Try to play it while you're left hand dominant.
Yeah.
I couldn't even beat the second stage on the easiest difficulty. It is not in my wheelhouse as a result. And while that's not the biggest issue in the world, the fact that like roughly 1 in 10 people, I think it's about 10% of people left-handed, but like roughly 1 in 10 people will not be able to beat the game
Mhm.
due to no fault of their own. Yeah, that's kind of a problem. A little
Right.
bit of a problem there. So yeah, I would
Definitely.
say it's one of those two. For Dark Moon, I was hoping, I guess, for more kind of how Luigi's Mansion was classically in the first one. Even though it was very linear in that regard,
Hmm.
I guess too many people. This is just a guess. I guess too many people between Luigi's Mansion 1 and Dark Moon felt like, oh, I've got this key now. I've got to look all over the place for it, even though it would show you on the little GBA. So having sort of sections within the house that were just walled off just didn't sit right with me for some reason. Like
Yeah.
having a mansion, like a big thing, that's the whole thing, is that it's huge. You want to be able to explore that whole thing. And
Yeah.
part of the Mansion 1, part of the fun of that was even whenever you knew where you were supposed to go, sometimes, oh, there'd be like a little secret golden mouse or something that would pop up, and there wouldn't be any indication. It was just if you explored, you might find this extra thing that you can pick up and get yourself closer to the highest level mansion at the end of the game.
True. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't played. Sadly, I haven't played the other two Luigi's Mansions yet. I've had the first one on GameCube, but then after that, I didn't get a chance to catch up on the other ones. So eventually, I'm gonna get to those.
Yeah, fittingly enough, since we were talking about rented games, Luigi's Mansion was actually one that I bought from Blockbuster when they were going out of business.
Oh yeah,
I got the game for $4.
ooh, it's
Yeah, I
nice.
know. Yeah, and CD was like perfectly intact, still works fine.
Would be disgusting. Like games back then. It's like how many games you looked at that were like real expensive now that you could got for like $3 or $4. Like son of a gun, I could have got like Ill Bleed for the
Yeah.
Dreamcast. Like that's one that I used to see all the time at home, Hollywood Video or Blockbuster,
hmm
and
Yeah,
it's
I bought Path of Radiance for 30 USD, for 30
oh,
USD.
nice.
And yeah, at least as of this recording, it's going with a decent like game and disc, not even new, just in a good condition. It's gonna what be about high 200s, low 300s on average. Like it's exponentially more expensive now because it never got remade. It never got ported to,
Nope.
NSO Online. Nothing. It's either emulate it or physical copy. That's it.
As I was telling NCS last time I did the podcast last week, I said it's funny that because I was looking, I watch Chugga Conroy a lot, watch the
Mhm.
NCS stuff a lot. I said it's funny as soon as Chugga played Xeno Blade Chronicles, it was like $30 before he played it. And all of a sudden he
Yeah.
played it and it was like 70,
Yep.
75, $80. I'm like, what in the
Yep.
world?
Double price. Sure
Yeah,
did.
I was like, what? How? Why? And then, it was just crazy. I lucked
Yeah,
out,
it's
got like
weird to think
60.
that it was like a hidden gem at the
Yeah.
time. Because now it's like, no, it's not. It never was. But I mean, there's plenty of games like that that would be considered hidden gems. Like
it-
Fire Emblem series, the first game that had Fire Emblem characters in it was not even Fire Emblem over here in the States. It was Melee.
yeah. Yep.
That was
Yep.
their test to be like, hey, let's see if people like these characters. And of course, everyone was like, who are these guys? I've never seen them before. I don't think they're on the cover because they're unlockables. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't look like it.
Yeah, they used the big names at that point.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fire Emblem, because that's a lot of people's game that they say that's kind of hard. What do you think the hardest game you've beat is?
Trauma Center, second opinion, easily. That game
Okay.
was tough. So for those that don't know, it is a surgical simulator game. It is one that is designed to have good control. It's not like a VR one where beating it's basically impossible.
Hmm.
The big problem is the controls to use the Wii remote, the Wii pointer, which is a little rough,
Mm,
and the nunchuck on top of that.
found.
Nunchuck will flick through your different things, so scalpel, surgical tape, all that stuff, and then of course the pointer is enabling you to use whatever you have on hand. So you're combining that with the fact that you're on a time limit, and then if you do manage to clear a stage, it's like, oh great, and then you realize that you got a C rank and you're trying to shoot for SS. So it basically not only becomes a game of memory where you're literally just memorizing, you know exactly what to do, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got to hope that the pointer holds out on top of that. So
Right.
it's basically a little bit of stuff you can control and a couple things that you just have to hope swing your way with the pointer cooperating, or whenever you try to lift something up with the forceps that the game doesn't go, oh, you pulled that too fast, now you got to try it again, because if you make a mistake, you're not getting that SS rank.
Mm,
So yeah, I would say that is probably the most difficult one. For an honorable mention, since it's not really a proper game to beat, but it does have a story mode, F-Zero GX, for
mm,
obvious reasons, because the story mode is brutal. It's
yeah.
super brutal, even on the lowest difficulty. Fun, but brutal.
Yeah, there's a lot of games I have that I haven't beat yet because either are struggling with a certain section or I'm just can't figure out how to do it as well because like Mario
Yeah.
Superstar Baseball is one of them where I'm like I can't get the
Mhm.
timing down for swinging. I just always whiff the ball and I'm like, what in the world? It's a great game, but I'm
Yeah.
just terrible at it.
And which is weird because maybe it's just my imagination, but Super Sluggers, by comparison, this game feels pretty easy compared to Superstar Baseball. I thought it'd be harder because you're using, like nunchuck or Wii remote controls, but I can pretty easily end a game 99-0 if I'm playing like no mercy rule 9 innings. Like I can probably get to 99 runs by the time the fourth inning is over.
That's nuts. Yeah, I can't even get.
Yeah.
I can't even get
It definitely takes a lot of practice. There's a lot of like sort of weird nuance with it. Things of like if I'm batting, part of it's getting the timing down, but I'll very often change my position in the batter's box the last second of moving
Mhm,
just to the left or just to the right in order to try to accommodate for that. Um, a lot of what helps too is if you've got characters in particular that you notice like they tend to pop fly a lot, like Peach or Daisy.
mhm.
They tend to foul out a lot, like Boo or King Boo, or most importantly, they just can't hit the ball at all, and you put them on your team because you need a good pitcher, like or need a good runner, fielder, something that's not batting. Just don't charge your swings because
Right.
you'll get singles, so you won't hit it over the fence, obviously, but you'll have a lot better luck with a lot of characters that don't tend to hit the ball as well. There's a couple exceptions there, but um, more often than not with Birdo nowadays, I'll do that because I
Oh yeah.
consider her to be a pretty good batter, but I usually will not charge her swings as often anymore because she can get a single or a double pretty reliably rather than a 50-50 chance that will either be, like get hit pretty deep and be a double, maybe a triple, or just result in an out, if not a double or a triple play. So a lot of
Nice.
weird nuances with that. At some point, I do want to go back, and I don't know if I'd like recreate the Let's Play
Mhm.
because 100%ing this game is hard. It is really hard. Some of the challenges that they give you for the characters are borderline impossible, if not completely luck based. Like
Yeah.
one of the babies, I think it's Baby Luigi, has to. So pretty much was just leaving out that like this is definitely a game at some point with baseball that I would like to go back and not necessarily do a let's play again, particularly not 100% because of how hard some of the missions are. Of like
Mhm.
Baby Luigi trying to catch a booted ball where somebody has to hit the ball into outfield towards a character that's not Baby Luigi. It has to have the character miss and get hit by the ball and bounce into the air, and he has to catch it before it hits the ground of things like that where like you can't control something like that. I mean,
Nope.
you could like try to put that in your favor by putting somebody with really weak fielding and then just throwing like simple pitches just right over the strike zone. So we'd never do something like that, but maybe like talking about the nuances of characters. I've been thinking a lot about doing more of recently, at least from my main channel, and by recently I mean like 4 years ago, I was doing like the ranking the Mario Kart tracks for Wii,
Mhm.
ranking them for Double Dash. I would almost want to do that with characters from this game and rank them from high to low because there's some really good characters that I would almost always recommend putting on your team, and there are others where I'm like, yeah, I would avoid these like the plague. I would never put them on my team other than like them being required or starting story mode, and they're stuck on your team until you can recruit somebody else and kick them off the
Yeah.
team, namely looking at Dixie Kong and Paragoomba from Donkey Kong's team.
That makes
They
total
can't bat, they
sense.
can't field, they can't pitch, they can barely run.
Mhm.
And then there's other characters that are absolutely insane. If you're ever looking to clear story mode, Wario's team is the best one to use by far.
I'll definitely try that out. Yeah, I need to play it a lot because I watched actually your Let's Play of it, and that's kind of what got me into wanting to try it out because I was like, man, this game looks fun.
Yeah, yeah,
S-
Wario is your best pick because you've got three power hitters with Wario, Petey Piranha, and King Boo. They can easily
mhm.
hit it over the fence. You've got Waluigi, who's the best pitcher in the game and a really good backup with Boo. And I don't ever think I've seen the Magic Koopas make a fielding mistake. Their fielding stats pretty high, so I don't think I've
Mm.
ever seen them make a mistake. So across the board, you'll have a pretty good setup there.
Well, speaking of YouTube, how did you get your start in YouTube? Where was there people you were looking up to that made you want to get into Let's Plays, or kind of were you just kind of like messing around one day and went, screw it, you know what, I'm gonna try it out.
Kind of a mix of both. I definitely watched YouTube. I'd said this name earlier, but I'll give them a shout out because you're much less likely to hear this in other ones. McGammer, McGammar, went by Voltage McGammer. He hasn't done YouTube in years, but
Hmm.
I watched him do a lot of the 2D Zelda games, Link's Awakening, Link to the Past, stuff like that, and had very like cynical, deadpan, sarcastic humor, which is what I love. And
Yeah.
I think I found him through a friend that was like, yeah, you got to go check this guy out. He's hilarious, and still is like to this day his stuff's still pretty funny. This is all like back when YouTube had 10-minute time limits. This
Oh,
was ages ago. I can't even imagine that doing that now. It would be a
right.
nightmare. um and so initially a lot of my videos, even looking at them now because I've got them up on my screen, sorting by oldest, gosh, these are 13 years ago, that's horrifying. But
Yep.
a lot of these were not done with direct capture. Looking at a lot of these were all done with a camera on a tripod. And the camera that I originally got for doing that had nothing to do with Let's Playing, actually. It was specifically there for me to be part of the photography team at my school at the time, because I would have been about starting high school. Around that time, unfortunately, my photography class, along with several other departments, because it was a small high school, all got cut in favor of football, as
Hmm.
one would expect back in the day, because, football reigns supreme, especially here in Texas.
Right.
Nothing will ever surpass it, and nothing ever has, and nothing ever will.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, as a whole, I was like, well, I've kind of enjoyed watching this, and I'm gonna like try to find games that people don't do as frequently, because this was the point where, okay, Mario 64, that's been done a dime a dozen.
Mhm.
Uh, some of the early Pokemon games like Fire Red, a dime a dozen. I'm gonna pick stuff for my library that I have that I really like, that I haven't seen as much for playthroughs of those. So that's why you see a lot of these earlier ones in here, like Mario Party 8, Star Fox Assault, Star Fox Adventures. What else is down
Yeah.
here? At the time, it wasn't played as much. Pokemon Sapphire, and it
Mhm.
wasn't until a pretty decent way through, I can search that pretty quick, that when I did my remake or redo of Super Mario Galaxy 1, that was the first time that I actually started using my proper setup that I have now, and even then, this was 12 years ago. So most of what I had done, I redid. Some of it I
Mhm.
didn't, but most of it I redid, and actually had the proper video quality that I wanted for it. That was around the time where I considered it less of a, oh hey, let's just like do this kind of thing for fun. It'll be something for my friends to watch, especially ones that like live overseas that can't get access to this game or don't have the console for this game, can't afford this
Mhm.
game. So it was kind of doing it for friends. And then after I had gotten a proper capture card, I kind of figured, okay, now we can do a little bit more with this. We got a little bit more freedom with which to work.
Yeah, I understand that. Now you named a couple people. Was there anybody else that you like that you? I guess when you eventually got your capture card, was there stuff people that you're like, oh, this person did their had great editing or great setup that they did every time or great you could tell like their volume was better because they had certain things, or were you kind of just like trying to figure it out by yourself and then going, oh yeah, I steal from somebody else.
Yeah, again, it kind of does feel like a mix. I don't think it was ever something intently. I don't ever think I had planned to make YouTube a career like the big names do. I don't
Mhm.
think that was ever one of my ideas. I did want to have fun with it, but I also wanted to make it like at the very least enough to where people that did not know my channel could still watch this and be like, "Oh yeah, the video quality looks good here. The audio
Mhm.
quality is good here." It doesn't have to be S tier for me, but something that if you clicked on it, you wouldn't just immediately go like, "Wow, that looks terrible. That sounds terrible." Just move on to something
Yeah.
else that's there. It would be something you could actually watch.
Mhm.
So I think with getting that capture card, because after the camera on the tripod, I used the same thing that NCS used,
Mhm.
because he had the 2-part video that he had about, this is how you set up the Diamond VC, like this is plugging it in. I did
Mhm.
the same thing he did with having the splitter, so I split it to my TV on one end and my computer on the other. And my current setup now with my Elgato is the same way. It's set up on a splitter as well.
Yeah.
Um, so while I didn't necessarily intentionally steal from it, it was definitely like, okay, this is actively looking for like, this is what people are doing. This is showing what they're doing. I'm going to use what they're doing and start from there and kind of build that base. And then from there, move on to doing whatever editing or versions I like, which most of my editing was just balancing the audio and video, cropping the video to take the black lines out, and then occasionally putting in mostly just a sarcastic comment in text about me getting information wrong or me doing something incorrectly
Yeah.
or walking by something on the screen that was obviously there but I wasn't paying attention to it. Just little sarcastic deadpan humor things like that.
I understand that. Did you was there anybody like you're looking at now you're like, man, I love to do like a cooperative setup with them, like anybody that you're like, man, I like watching their stuff or I love to see if I reach out to them if they'd be willing to do something with me.
I don't know necessarily for even like a big collab thing. It would kind of just be fun to have the opportunity to like go to Throne Controllers or something like that. Even if I
Hmm.
got completely destroyed by the questions, like I've watched every single one of those that they've done, at least the ones that have been put on YouTube and thinking like, okay, like how would I actually fare on some of these? They had one that they posted recently that had a
Mhm.
lot of double dash questions, and there was a challenge on there of like, I think it was placed in the top two in like a 100cc race, and I'm like, oh, I would have just completely smoked that. Like, I play on 150 all cup tour for fun, and I would consider a loss me not getting a perfect score after all 16 of those tracks. Like, I would have crushed that. I would have done so well.
Yeah.
But thinking for a collab, I would probably want somebody uh, that bounces off of me really well, but is also not too similar. So I would want probably somebody like a Josh Jepson, somebody that's a lot
Mhm.
more like high energy. Doesn't have to be like insanely high energy, but uh, more of the high energy that the sort of deadpan snarker can bounce off of really well. That was one of the
Yeah.
things that I would say my favorite, even though it wasn't a let's play, is the 4-way race that NCS John. Tyler Cedarwall and Josh Jepson did. I love
Oh,
that
okay.
race because you got two people that are really high energy in Josh and Tyler, and you
Yeah.
got two people that are a little bit more quiet, reserved, deadpan snarker with John and Tim. And
Mhm.
so you're basically getting two sets of that bounce off of each other really well. So definitely would look for somebody that would be more high energy in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people I like to collaborate with. Yourself, NCS. I mean, yeah, Chugga Conroy would be at the top of the list because it's, Chugga Conroy.
Yeah. He is very good with his information for sure. Like every single Let's Play that I've watched of his, I'm thinking like, wow, I did not know that, did not realize that.
Yep.
Even watching the Earthbound remake, I was like, man, I need to go replay this. Like I played it through a
Hmm.
couple times, but there's some stuff here that I missed. I should give this game another crack for sure.
It's incredible. Like when I was talking to NCS, I mean, you were obviously in the chat at that point, but like
Right.
it's like what I was telling him, it's like people like you, people like, NCS, people like Josh Jepson, Bill the Fajita, people I've, watched growing up. It's like, which is weird because you're younger than me, but you know what I mean.
I'm
But
not that old.
right. But I mean like watching you guys and talking, actually getting to talk to you guys personally, it's like y'all look at me as a peer instead of just looking at like, oh, he's just one of the fans. So it's kind of
Yeah.
cool how, like more that I get along with people, cooler it is to actually get to talk to people like that. Because I mean, who expected in 22 episodes I get to talk to a lot of the people I, looked up to, like yourself, Seigen Cat,
Yeah.
Bill the Fajita, Josh Jepson, NCS. I mean, just to name a few, that's incredible five right there. That it's like, what in the world? So,
Yeah, I think that was part of the upside that I had of like growing my channel to not be super massive like a lot of those big
hmm.
names. Because even like looking at the list of people you interviewed, I'm like, I am sitting in a very small chair amongst giants that are towering above me. Like
Yeah,
I'm just looking up, like, wow, look at how cool this is, and I'm
yep.
here too. Uh, but like also having a big enough audience that every now and again, back when YouTube actually had an inbox that was easy to find,
Yep.
not so much now, but back
Nope.
then, and this is before Skype or Discord were as big of a thing, mostly Discord now, but
Hmm.
getting those little messages from people that weren't direct comments, but only ones that I could read of like, oh wow, like you inspired me to either like pick up this game and try it or try it again, or even to take my
Hmm.
own shot at trying to do this thing. And it's so easy to get in that mindset, especially as you get older, of like, oh yeah, that would take too much time and effort to learn for me. Like I've heard that many times from artist friends that started out and were like, yeah, there's no way I'm ever going to get it to the level I want. But the key is just to keep at it. And it's one of the reasons too that if you look back on my YouTube channel, even right now,
Hmm.
uh, going to my videos and searching by the oldest one that's there, uh, it is the first video that I ever released, which was of Mario Party 8, and it is a hot mess. And it is there to remind me that no matter how much I'm feeling like this video is not going to turn out right, it's not going to be good, it is absolutely going to be better than where I started because that video
Yeah.
was on a camera. It was blurry. The audio was terrible. Like, I did not introduce myself. I didn't introduce my guest that. It was just awful. Like, just, And part of that, of course, comes with the experience of age, both for me personally being older and
Hmm.
also for understanding how those things work. So like the more that you keep at it and the more that you open yourself to having different ways of trying things. That was one of the reasons I tried doing those top 16 Mario Kart tracks and stuff like that. It wasn't, in my case, oh, I want to try to get a lot of hits on this. It was like, you know what, I want to try something different. I don't want to just talk about all of the game and everything about it. I want to like go into more finer detail, like talk about why I like the double dash tracks, talk about why I don't like Mario Kart Wii, and I talked about that in that video because
Yeah.
it feels like a slow paced game compared to double dash.
Mhm.
Like just little things like that. It would almost make me want to do one for Mario Kart 8, but that would take forever because Mario Kart 8 is not my favorite Mario Kart game, and there's a specific reason for it. But by doing different setups in different ways, it allows you to uh, talk about specific things in games that you may not have necessarily even intended.
Mhm.
So it definitely helped in that regard for sure. So I think even watching back in the day, like you said, growing up, it helped me like catch a lot of things of not just watching the video, but
Mhm.
like thinking, okay, why are they doing this the way that they're doing this? Like, why are they presenting it in this way? Like,
Yeah.
Chugga's is very information based. This is like showing you all the additional content. Then you've got people that are more strictly like humor based, of like making silly mistakes and things like that. So it definitely
Mhm.
opens you up to different styles. So for anybody that's thinking, oh, we're well past the days of you know, streaming on Twitch for video games or even Let's Playing, like, oh, that's in the past. If you want to do it, just go for it. Like honestly, just go for it.
Yeah.
You will be surprised with how much, if you just don't stress over it too hard and just enjoy it, especially at the beginning, you'll find that it'll be a lot of fun to experiment. And it definitely helped me growing up as a very like shy introverted kid finding my voice.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, do you have a favorite LP that you've done?
Ooh, that would be tough. I'd have to look through the list here. Look through the list. Uh, like Instinct wants to say Mario Galaxy One and
Mm.
the remake of it, and the main reason is probably because I would consider Mario Galaxy One in my top two favorite games of all time. So that's
Okay.
just kind of a no-brainer for me.
Mhm.
Um, I've always loved Galaxy. I love the lighting. I love the gameplay. The orchestrated soundtrack is phenomenal. So definitely liked that. I did like doing some of the smaller series that I had.
Mhm.
Um, Ones that saw more popularity, but less about the popularity and more about putting light on a game that people might not have known. So looking at this list, Mario Superstar Baseball, like you said, Pokemon Coliseum and its sequel, Pokemon XD, at the time, Star Fox Adventures, even though I don't care for the game, I do have a soft spot for the Let's Play of Soul Calibur Legends, which was
Mhm.
way, way back in the day and is very different from a traditional Soul Calibur fighting game.
Yep.
Um, and then, of course, doing Path of Radiance is a lot of fun. I've thought time and again about redoing that one or doing a top 10 video for that for character units and stuff like that. So there's a fair bit in there, but I would probably say Mario Galaxy 1 is probably my favorite one. Yeah.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I remember watching a few of your Let's Plays over the years and be like, man, I got stuck on this one part, and somebody actually, being able to find videos like yourself and
Yeah.
well, so long, weird story. I went to college, and my best friend was my roommate at that point. And actually, the reason made it into Let's Plays is we were playing Super Mario Sunshine for the first time
Oh,
together.
yeah. Oh, man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was
Sunshine and I have a complicated history together.
yeah. So weird thing was it was me and my best friend. We're like, oh, we're gonna find Super Mario Sunshine, because we didn't Prima guides were, still big back then, but they weren't as, big,
Right.
and it was like, I don't want to go spend $20 right now to kind of go and find something that,
Or a poorly written guide on game facts, maybe.
yep, gamewinners.com, that was a big one.
Oh
But
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was funny. So the first, like, when I remember finding Super Mario Sunshine was actually Chugga Conroy was playing it. That's the first Let's
Yeah.
Plays I had ever found
Yeah.
was him. It was because it was like, all right, we got to figure out this mission, and then like trying to actually still watch all of them as we're playing through the game. But he's like,
Hmm.
you have to wait for next couple days for it to come out. And it's like, good grief, hurry
Right.
up. Was there any like games that like when you were watching people Let's Play that you're playing with them that you're like, Man, hurry up! I'm stuck on this one part and I can't figure it out.
I wouldn't say I'm stuck on it, but I'll give an honorable mention because it's in the process of going on right now, which is Dragon Quest Builders 2 that Tim is
Mm,
doing. He got about halfway through chapter 1. By that point, I already bought the game. I already beat the game. I 100% of the game. Like, it
mhm,
just like really inspired me to do it. But it was kind of that like, oh, I need to see what happens now. Like, I played the first game and I loved it so much, and this looks like a lot of fun too. And
mhm.
just seeing him start that, I'm like, okay, I'm convinced I'm buying the second game. Like, I got to do it. Like, I just have to buy it for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and thinking about it too, since you'd mentioned it a second ago, of like having the videos split in a way that it was pretty easy to go through everything. I think that was one of the things that I really liked about doing, in particular, my Mario 64 Let's Play is,
Mhm,
in particular, those videos. They're all like very by the book isn't the right term, but like everything's categorized very well. And I think that was the first time that I actually understood the concept, at least in terms of video editing, of like categorizing it. Because you look at these videos, the first one is just Bomb on Battlefield. The second
yeah.
one is just Womp's Fortress and getting the wing cap. The 13th one is just Tiny Huge Island. So each episode just corresponds to each
Yeah.
world. So I guess that was around the era of just because you have an infinite time limit doesn't mean you need to make these videos that are like 30 to 45 minutes long. Just,
Mhm.
pace them as whatever you feel is the right way to pace them for sure.
Yep. And that's kind of what I've actually, because I made 4 videos so far. I actually have like 6, but editing takes in a while because everything going on in life and trying to edit this and or edit
Yeah.
podcasts and the videos too. So but yeah, I
Yeah.
actually did one let's play of Poppy's Playtime, which came to PS5, which was nice, so
Ooh,
I could actually
yeah.
play on the PS5 because my laptop was like, nope, I'm gonna die every time I try and play it. So
Yeah, I think everybody's got like that one game, Monster Hunter
yeah,
World, on mine. Like, even though it's a new
yeah,
laptop, it just can't handle it. And I get that, that's requiring more fan power than what a laptop can truly handle.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, thinking of a game in particular that I like went to look for a guide
mm,
is probably one that I ended up doing, honestly, because I know a fair bit of what I chose for games
mhm,
often came from I can't figure out how to beat this, and there's not a lot of methods to show how to beat this.
mhm,
I'll just like show it off myself and be like, hey, this is like the what I can figure to be the easiest way to do this or the optimal way to do this. And I
yep,
think that was probably, now knowing way more about the game now than I did at the time, that was probably Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, because that's, at least video wise on here, that is bar and away my longest series that I've done on here. The longest video count, not counting that one, is Path of Radiance, which is 65 videos. Radiant Dawn is over 100. It's 102 videos long. It
which
is a
is
long, and granted, that is with an 11-minute time limit at the
mhm,
time, but I'd love to go back now and actually have the bios for everything. But I remember my friend and I got stuck around part 3 of that game. You have different sets of units. You have your Dayan units, your Dawn Brigade. You've got the Crimean units, the Royal Knights. You've got Ike and the Girl Mercenaries. But then
mhm,
later on, you have to try to fight your weak, wimpy Dawn Brigade against the big bad Girl Mercenaries, and they almost always will just get completely trampled because they're like 20 levels lower. And so there were stages, even on easy, my friend and I were like, we're playing this defensively as best we can, but we're doing something wrong. Like, we keep losing somebody somewhere, and we were trying not to lose any of our characters.
right,
And then eventually we figured out some sort of technique for it. I don't remember what specifically we did for that run, but that's what inspired me to think, okay, if this game's like really that difficult, what if I did like a let's play on this? The starting stages are pretty easy, but the game gets harder.
mhm,
Maybe pick something that plays to my advantage of something that I can do really good for a genre, which is usually either racing games or RPGs, something that
mhm,
I will have a skill set that people might actually be able to find this and think, oh, that's what you're supposed to do in 313. You're supposed to block off the walls and put Ike to sleep with Laura's sleep staff and then go rush him. But you
mhm,
have to have Laura class changed or she will not be able to hit Ike. It won't happen. Her hit rate will be too low. So small little niche things like that of doing the whole project, but it almost feels like doing the whole project was like for those one or two
yep.
key moments of like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the moment now.
Do you have a favorite console you kind of let's played from, or is it kind of like mostly GameCube?
Oh, it's probably the GameCube. I mean, I grew up with a GameCube. There's so many good
Hmm.
games on it. There's so many. I feel like my Wii is used more for playing GameCube games than Wii games, but I've got a few Wii games on there. If it's not the GameCube, if it can be any console,
Hmm.
handheld or console, there is a special place in my heart for GBA games, in particular the
Hmm.
Game Boy Advance SP. Uh, I remember somebody donating that to a garage sale we were doing, and still have the little metallic briefcase that it came in my
Oh,
other room.
nice.
But having a GBA that I could play that actually had lighting, like a backlight on it, because for those not in the know, the original Game Boy Advance did not have any backlighting,
Oh
and
no.
you had to play it basically underneath a light in order to
Hmm.
play it. I remember many times when I should have been asleep with having like a reading lamp overhead and playing with it like over my shoulder, trying to beat through. Let's see, it would have been Gen 3 of Pokemon. Before that, it would have been Pokemon Silver for the Game Boy Color.
Yep. Yep. I
Good
remember.
times.
Yeah, that was the thing about the Game Boy Color going to the GBA. The Game Boy Color, even though it didn't have a black light, but that little snake light worked so well with the
Yeah,
Game Boy Color. But
that
then
was the key right there.
it connected to the Game Boy Advance, but it felt like it was more in the way on the Game Boy Advance than was on the Game Boy Color.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
it totally did.
It just felt. And then they came out with they tried to do it something else where it was like if I remember right, 'cause it's been so long, it was a light, but then above the light it was like a magnifying glass that showed the screen, and that's how they kind of lit
Yeah,
up the Game Boy
yeah, it
Advance
was
at
an
first.
awkward piece of plastic, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was just so weird. And I was like, ugh. But yeah, then the SP came out and just kind of got rid of all that stuff. So
Yeah,
really cool.
it was a very good handheld system for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, not my favorite. My personal favorites, the PSP. I
Ooh,
know,
yeah.
I know. It's
You've heard it all before, yeah.
it's
My
not.
cousin had one, so I get to play it from time to time. Yeah,
It wasn't. It's not. It wasn't like loved by Sony as much. They didn't put many games on it, but like the games they put on it, like Daxter. I love Daxter. That was such a
yeah,
great game. Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade. There was Pursuit Force, which was totally different from anything I had played at that point. But I mean, games like that. Persona 4 Golden was on the Vita, which was a great
yep,
game too. And I had the Vita too, which they killed that too early. They had so much stuff they could have done with the Vita because the Vita was more powerful than PSP. But just
yeah.
like
It didn't have a fan, sadly.
yeah, it was like the Dreamcast where the Dreamcast died because it wasn't beloved out, everywhere else. Um,
Yeah.
Now what is the future hold for you going forward? Are you doing YouTube and Twitch, or are you kind of going leaning into Twitch more? Are you kind of like, well, let's keep going Let's Plays, but not as often as I
So
used
I'm
to?
Yeah, so like I'm in a kind of weird stage just of life as a whole right now.
Hmm.
I mean, you'd probably understand this whether your parents are in good or poor health or not. Of like when your parents get up there, you're more worried about their health.
Yeah.
And my mom's health has always been a big concern, even before I started. She's got you've probably heard of Mr. Beast, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
You know that he has Crohn's disease. He doesn't bring it up too often, but he
Yeah.
he does have it. My mom's got the same thing. The only difference is she's had it for 35 years.
Hmm.
And so as a result, modern medicine, when modern was the 1970s, not quite as good as it is now. And
Hmm.
so her health has, of course, suffered because of that. So I'm kind of at this weird stage of one of the big reasons that I'd stopped doing so many videos wasn't from lack of wanting to. It was because I was trying to balance my own personal life, my mom's
Hmm.
health, my dad's health, being in college, having a job, having a second job, and it was just all of that together was not doable on top of having any sort of free time. Now that they've got a little bit more, they've got more friends and family that are around that actually recognize, like, oh, hey, your folks aren't in great health. We should have been helping take care of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would have been nice when I was 14. Now that I'm 30, I've kind of gotten used to it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so going forward, I guess what that means is there is definitely a lot I want to do, and probably at least once a week, I'm thinking, hey, I should go back to YouTube. Like I should try to do this video. Even on my desktop now, I have some videos recorded, maybe not necessarily for YouTube, but for doing another ranked video, and I'll keep
Mhm.
what that is a secret for now, just for in case I decide to follow through with
Release
that.
it.
But yeah, now that I'm working less hours, thankfully, because in 2 weeks I was working about 140 to 150 hours. Yeah, I know we were understaffed. Unsurprisingly, COVID killed that. But now that I'm actually
Yes.
working a reasonable amount, which is about half of what I was working, it's definitely more feasible. But I know the big thing that I'm doing at this current point in time is doing a lot of the Icarus plays.
Right.
She's one of my friends, has been growing up since about the end of middle school, start of high school. And the whole point of doing that series is these are all the games that she did not get to play growing up because she's the second oldest of 5 kids. So there's not a lot of money to go around. For the games they do have, either the oldest gets to play it because they're the oldest, or you need to let the little kids have some time and play it, and you're stuck in that center area
Yeah.
where that's just not going to happen. And so it's giving her the opportunity to play all these games growing up. That's why we've done Star Fox Adventures, we've done Paper Mario, which is why I had her come on for the first episode of the
Mhm.
remake. Doing all of those, so I guess it's changing what's important in doing those recordings or those streams. And so initially it was kind of a case of, oh, this is helping me find my voice. This is getting me used to doing public speech, even though you're just talking, into a microphone. There's nobody there whenever
Mhm.
you're initially doing YouTube. But I'm sure had I not been doing that for probably about at least 5, 6 years at that point, I imagine taking like speech and debate that I was required to take in university would have been a nightmare. Like, I wouldn't have known what to do up there on that stage with like 20 other people looking at me. I would have been an
Right.
absolute wreck. I wouldn't have been able to do this now. And this is just technically with one other person that I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the rest of the chat of the audience.
Right.
So I guess it's changing priorities, but it's not necessarily a going away from Twitch or YouTube or either one, really.
Mhm.
There's definitely plans for that in the future. There's just, of course, other things that I'm balancing. I'm spending a lot more time writing now. Writing's been a big passion of mine about since the time that I started on YouTube. Working on my own book, working on editing a book for a friend that he's finished
Nice.
the first draft for. He's actually got like physical hard copies of that original one, but tweaking that. But I definitely still think that writing component could absolutely be used. Take that and put it into your scripts for your videos, like doing those top 16 tracks or top 10
Mhm.
characters in this game or whatever. So I'd be able to translate the writing portion of what I do into the video portion, whereas the other way, it used to be the other way around of, okay, you're getting to play a video game, now you have to write a story with what you're saying and
Mhm.
explain what's going on here. How much of this do you want to show? How little do you want to show? Do you want to just say like parts of this are great? If you want to see all the text, like genuinely go try out the game for yourself. I'll leave them on screen to pause it, but go try the game.
Mhm.
So it's more of a course correction rather than necessarily just stopping altogether. While I do have more time now, even if I had less time in the future, I don't think it would ever be fully off of my mind unless suddenly there was a new platform that came up that had all the
Mhm.
benefits that both YouTube and Twitch had without any of the cons. But even then, I would likely just move to that as a different sort of platform. But
Right.
I've definitely always constantly had it on the brain of like, okay, where am I going to go forward with this? How am I going to keep this moving along at whatever pace I'm deciding to move it along at? But
Makes sense.
I think I'm had only taken a step back initially to take care of other people in my life, and
Right.
now I'm taking a step somewhat back in, but not a full step back in to take care of me personally.
Mhm.
And I've definitely been doing that a lot more in the last year than I probably have for about age 14 to 28, which has been a real blessing. And that if that's not a sign that you need to take care of yourself, and that it's not a crime to do that, don't
Right.
don't be conditioned to think that like I was. It's not a crime to take care of yourself at all.
Mhm.
Um, so the short answer of what does the future look like? I think the future looks like still doing a fair bit of streaming on Twitch, probably at least 2 episodes a month, barring vacation or illness. Still
Mhm.
having those up on my archive page, still doing playthroughs with Icarus, and I'm hoping with in the immediate future that there will be more time to dedicate to doing those videos that are less about doing the let's plays, but still showing the games and sparking the discussion of what do you think about what the best Mario Kart track is? What do you think the most underrated Mario Kart game is? Why do you think it's Mario Kart Super Circuit? It's probably because the tracks are actually not that bad and the music is a bop. Just
Right.
like all the little things like that of not necessarily let's playing, but getting to still do videos and focus on different subjects.
Now, I asked Tim this last week. Um,
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm itching. Some bit me just now. Uh,
I getcha.
yeah. So I asked him this last week. What
Hmm.
is your Mount Rushmore? Since you are a Let's Player, what is your Mount Rushmore of Let's
Ah,
Players?
yeah. Okay. It's almost weird to put John in that category now because he's kind of in that boat too of like
Hmm.
let's plays aren't really a thing he's done anymore. Like
Right.
the last full let's play he did was what Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, and that was a hot minute ago. Like
Yeah.
that was quite a ways away. And I still look back on that fondly. But I do think he established a lot. I do think he, in a lot of senses, for his style of both videos and later on Twitch, I
Hmm.
think he caught the fact that he was changing and how to change and why he should change faster than most other people did, of
Hmm.
how he wanted to produce the content that he did. So I would still put John on that list, whether it's Let's Playing or not. I would still
Hmm.
have him there. I would also have Tim on there for sure. Been around for ages, done a bunch of games. I think he's got a good mix of games that he does really well at, which
Hmm.
is something that they talk about a lot in early TRG of like, oh, why does Tim keep like falling behind in these games? Like we've seen with older games, Tim is extremely good. Like this
Yeah.
man could beat Contra without losing a life.
Yeah. It's
Like
disgusting.
that's insane. So I think in particular, you get to see a lot of surprisingly, probably even to himself, some very high skill gameplay with some of the
Hmm.
older style games. A lot of the newer stuff, because he grew up seeing these new graphics, it's almost like you can potentially get a childlike wonder of like, oh, this is what seeing what like Super Mario Galaxy looks like for the first time. This is what
Right.
seeing uh like any of the newer games now, and it always feels like it's him experiencing a new set of things for the first time, whether it's the jump from 2D to 3D, whether it's the jump from SD to HD, whatever the
Hmm.
case may be. So I would put Tim on there as well. I think for me personally, even though I would say they're definitely not like one of the big
Right.
names
Right.
up there, I would put Voltage Megamera on there because I remember watching every single one of his videos. He very much got me into playing games that I would not have normally played otherwise. I wasn't big into the 2D Zeldas, and now Link's Awakening is my number three for Zelda games. It's one of my favorites. And I think a lot of that was just due to the fact he has a very similar humor to mine.
Yeah.
I seem to have a lot more of the style of humor you see on average from somebody that lives in like the Europe UK area, and I think that's a mix of having friends like that growing up and watching a lot of UK media growing up.
Hmm.
So he felt very similar in my playstyle, and I remember thinking when I started, I don't want to necessarily, at least commentary wise, I don't want to be in a meal. I don't want to be a John. I want to be like a McGammer. I want to have like the
Yeah.
deadpan, sarcastic humor going into that. So that would be my number three. Number four. Ooh, this is going to be where it's tough because there's a couple good options here.
Hmm.
Because it's less about the who and it's more about the why, right? Because I mean, if you were going with the why, you could put like 30 people on there for different things.
Hmm.
Uh, So I think, as much as I hate to be predictable and say all three of the core TRG members, I'm going to be predictable, and I'm going to say the core three TRG members. I liked to poke fun at Emil back in the day of being like,
Hmm.
yeah, he's always talking over the other two during TRG and whatnot. But the fact remains is I do consider him very good at what he does. His
Hmm.
information is on point. When he makes a mistake, he completely owns it and corrects it through either a following video or just with, little subtitles,
Yeah.
something going on there, but the information he provides, he definitely goes way out of his way. And I think in particular, you can see that with the games that he really loves. I remember
Yeah.
watching his remake of Earthbound, sending that postcard that he had in for who knows how long.
Hmm.
Like,
Just to
even if
see
he
it.
got nothing back from it, that takes some dedication to take a piece of media that you are a big fan of and give it away knowing that there's a very good chance that not only will you not see it again, that you will never get something back. Like
Yeah.
it will just disappear and it will be gone forever. And then to actually get something back from it just makes it like that much more of an amazing experience that he's got
Yep.
the dedication to give it away, but then also like being able to in a weird way, kind of experience like opening this letter for the first time, seeing what's inside it. Of like, you're almost getting to again experience something for the first time again, which is
Right.
a very surreal experience. If I didn't put all the TRG members on there, I'll put this person as an honorable mention because I find their videos just more humorous than anything. Lukagen.
Oh, yep.
Lukagen does
Okay.
some phenomenal videos. Watching her play the Mario RPG with John was hilarious. They play off each other so well,
Hmm.
insanely well, because again, it's that like higher energy, goofy, risque humor versus like the deadpan. What are you doing? This is silly. All right, fine. Give me the controller. They
Yep.
combine very well together. But even watching, in particular, I think the first thing I watched from Reese on her own was actually was 999, which I
Okay.
liked quite a bit. It was 9 doors, 9 persons, nine whatever the last thing was. But it's
Yeah.
sort of that Danganronpa kind of style of murder mystery, point and click adventure. Uh, and she's definitely got some good commentary. Hers is fun to just have there, and is one that will definitely always like brighten your spirits with just somebody of not taking things too seriously and kind of just forget about all of life going on and just
Yeah.
have something silly on for sure.
Definitely. I understand that. So before we leave, I'm gonna see if there is any chat questions that want to be it. So if you're in the chat and you want to give any questions to either myself or Delta Violet, go ahead and feel free. While we wait, I'll see if anybody pops in. But do you do you feel like there's somebody that is out there right now that maybe they're a little bit smaller, you or a Let's Player or a YouTube star or something like that that you feel like is gonna eventually hit their stride stride and go up the ladder?
And just absolutely crush it. There's a couple that I've been seeing recently. I'm gonna look at my subscription list here, honestly, because there's a couple people that have been like that where they started out and I could tell straight out of the gate. I was like, yeah, this person like it might take a second, but like once the algorithm gods
Hmm.
decide like, hey, this person is worthy of is worthy of being given the amount that they should, then uh then they absolutely will. Let's see here. Trying to look in particular.
I will say, if anybody plays the Persona games and really loves them, one of the people I think that is very underrated. I mean, he's very underrated. He's been on TRG once, but I still feel like he's an underrated Let's Player. Is Super Genius. If you ever get a chance to watch his Persona stuff,
Yes.
so good.
Yeah, his is definitely very, very good stuff.
And it's just he just doesn't like he's not he's on the I would say he's on the same platform, coming up as like a Slim Kirby and
Yeah.
Steven George from Steven Play, stuff like that, where he's right there with right behind Chugga and NCS and Proton John, but he just doesn't get the respect and everything. I think he's underrated still, which great Let's Player though.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And I'd almost put Slim Kirby in there as well.
Hmm.
It's I mean it's hard to say because I actually admittedly have not watched a lot of newer content that he's done.
Hmm.
Simply because it's harder for me to catch streams, and this is probably personal advice, at least for me personally, for anybody that does live streaming. Art like vlog, archive your stuff
Hmm.
on YouTube because I work overnight now, and so like I just can't catch those streams a lot of the time. They'll get streamed at prime time, which is about 5 o'clock in the afternoon to about 9 o'clock at night. I'm
Hmm.
either like still asleep or I'm getting ready for work or I'm at work, and so like I usually can't catch those in the moment. But more often than not, I'll be able to go back and actually look at them. There's been a lot of people like that where, and you can go watch it on Twitch for a time before it inevitably gets eaten away by the like 2 weeks to a month that it will give you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's how I feel with these because I've done them. I do them here on Twitch so people can watch them, and then I post them my YouTube channel, and people can watch them there too, which is kind of cool. It's like I've never done anything like this. Even just I started this because my buddy Jordan James, who has his own podcast, started doing podcasts. I'm like, that looks like it's fun, and then I just kind of started moving up the ladder after that. So
Yeah. All right, I
really
think I've
good
got a
stuff.
couple names. I'm gonna go
Okay.
with first and foremost the video game related one, and they definitely hit their stride. But I know at the time, like somehow we're not getting the support that I was expecting at the time, which is another TRG regular, which is Tom Fox.
Yep.
Um, Tom Fox does some amazing content, hilarious. Even if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, watching the shorts, the smaller versions. And the other one is Ray, or Brown Man, as it goes
Oh
by on
yeah.
YouTube. Does a lot of does a lot of 100% playthroughs, real quality stuff, good audio, good video. I remember watching a lot of his stuff. He's kind of got that sarcastic humor as well, but can
Yep.
also be super hammy. So he's definitely up there. Uh, for a couple of other small ones that are not related to gaming, these are just more personal ones than anything. Once Upon an Island, Peridium, and Idled Out. If you like Survivor content, go watch their
Hmm.
stuff. It's all very good, all very informative, a lot of fun to watch. Usually pretty funny. They don't recycle jokes too often, which I appreciate because you can only use a joke so many times before it's
Right.
not funny to the audience, or more likely it's not funny to you by that point.
Yeah. True.
I don't think I've had any of. I don't think I've had any jokes, at least to me, that have like completely worn thin.
Speaking of Brown Man, R.I.P. to Achievement Hunter slash Rooster Teeth. So
Yeah,
yeah, he was one of the OGs for that, like one of the original six.
yeah, been around for
Um,
forever for
yep,
sure.
yep. It was when I was watching at that point. It was Jeff, Jack, Gavin, Michael, Ray, and Ryan,
Yeah,
which was the original six. But yeah, it's crazy, watching how sad that just like broke, because that was like my dream job to move to Austin, Texas, and work for Rooster Teeth, but didn't happen. But
yeah, for sure. It's always the weird thing of like seeing a bigger companies like either split off and have like a separate thing going, or like sort of breaking up. I don't know if you've been
Mhm.
watching any of. I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard of them, but I don't know if you've watched any of them of the Try Guys at all.
Yep,
To think that their core cast very soon is going to be down to just two
yeah,
is baffling to me. Like the first one, which I won't go into details for, I entirely get why. And like I had a feeling with seeing Eugene in less and less videos of like, yeah, he's he's off doing his
yeah,
own thing. I wasn't expecting the him to break away and start his own stuff quite that fast. But it's weird to think that of that original cast, you've got half of them now. It's just Zach and
yeah.
Keith, and it'll be interesting to see how that content changes, because when you do any group thing like that, I would say like 50% of it is having your quality up there for your video,
Mhm.
your audio. The other 50% is entirely the group of people that you're with.
Yep, definitely.
Of You could have like the exact same game, the exact same duration, the exact same recording hours, but you change like one person in a group of five to another, and it could go from being absolutely terrible to insanely good. Like
Mhm.
it is amazing how small of a change it can be to change that result.
Yep, and that's like another one I watched growing, or watched. I wouldn't say growing up. About when Cheap Mounter was getting, kind of getting bigger, where they had the Let's Play
Yeah.
family, and then they brought in Screw Attack, and
Hmm.
they went, they became Screw Attack, and they became Game Attack when it was Sean and oh my goodness, why can't I think of his name? Shoot, it's bugging. I'll remember it later. But then it was like
It'll come
Sean,
back to you in like 10
Grace,
minutes.
yeah, Sean, Grayson, and then oh my goodness, I'll think of his name. But then all of a sudden now it's like hang time. It's not, it's just Sean and Grayson now. Peeta's gone, and it's just weird. All these
Yeah.
people that I, watched before. It's like, wow, this is nuts. Oh, Craig.
It's
Craig
also
was the other
easy to
guy's name.
forget too.
Yeah,
It's also easy to forget too. Like, even when I think of like the big names like PewDiePie, of like, yeah, he doesn't do as much YouTube now because like he's got kids, like he's got
yeah,
a family, all this other stuff going on. Like,
yeah,
that's crazy to think about, of
yeah. He made a
all the different things that
lot.
can come up, health or family or whatever.
Yeah, he's made a lot of money though. He's set for life.
Oh yeah, he's good. I wouldn't worry
Yeah.
about him.
No. No, I don't, if I make money on YouTube, cool. If I don't, cool. It's just kind of like right
Yeah.
now it's just a hobby, and it's like, I'd like to make it a second, job. Where, I mean, it's gonna be a hobby no matter what. But I mean, like a job where I'm,
Oh yeah.
some getting some type of money. But if I don't, screw it, whatever. But is there anybody that you want to shout out, or you want to shout out what channels you use,
Funny you
yourself?
should say that. I was clicking on their channel right now. He's gonna kill me for doing this though. Again, not related directly to gaming content, but he is one of those smaller channels. He's larger than mine, but like he's working on building up, and he does really good content. Which is Mount Canyon, MTKNJON. He does a lot of art stuff of like talking about, hey, you're never too old to draw. Like, how do you find
Mhm.
your art style? Talking about like, hey, you have to intentionally draw some bad art from time to time. Of like, draw bad because you'll realize what's bad and how to fix it. Uh,
Nice.
Talking about rotating the canvas, like what art supplies to use. If you are an aspiring artist, be it veteran, new, whatever,
Mhm.
very small videos. He tries to shoot, since I know him personally, he tries to shoot for videos anywhere between like typically 2 to 4 minutes. Like they're
Oh yeah.
very short most of the time. There's a couple of ones in there he intentionally has go a lot longer, but most of these
Mhm.
that I'm looking at right now, these are about 2 to 4 minutes long, so they're nice and quick and easy to go through.
That's cool. And then yourself, you are PitMarthRoy on YouTube still, right?
Yes, still am. Yep. And then
Okay.
PitMarthRoy live streams is where I keep all of my my Twitch live streams archived.
And then your DeltaViolet on Twitch.
Yep, DeltaViolet on Twitch, and I believe everything else largely is still for all my other social media. I'm still PitMarthRoy on Facebook, still the same on Twitter. So all of those have stayed the same. If you're looking for any of those particular links, check my Twitch in the description below. We'll have all of those. It'll have a link to joining my Discord as well. So all of
Nice.
those are available and ready.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on to this episode of my podcast. Trying to get it back going again, so it's cool getting to talk to
Yeah.
people watched growing up. I'm always gonna say growing up. I don't know why, but watched that I enjoy watching stuff like that. But thank you for coming on. If you guys want to follow Delta Violet here, like he said, Delta Violet on Twitch, Pitmore Roy on YouTube. So. Uh, episode 22 is coming to an end, but episode 23 will be pretty soon. I hope I'm gonna see what guests I can get next, because this is cool getting to see all these people, Let's Players that I actually did with. So we're gonna see what
Yeah.
happens. Maybe we'll get, another big star. We'll find out though. So you have
Or
to,
another me.
yeah, you have to connect to JDUB and friends here on Twitch to find out.
Yeah.